Shocking revelation. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has just exposed Western-backed insurgents operating secretly in Burkina Faso. You won't believe who Traoré just exposed, and what they were doing in Burkina Faso. Caught in the act. Western agents busted in Traoré's boldest move yet. They thought no one would notice, until Traoré unmasked them live. Burkina Faso just struck back, Western-backed insurgents exposed by Traoré. Traoré pulled a curtain, and what he found hiding behind it will shock you. Africa's fight against foreign control just got real. Traoré leads the charge. Western powers denied it, but Traoré caught their agents red-handed. How far will the West go? Traoré just showed us the terrifying truth. This is the moment Africa said no. Traoré exposes the empire's dirty games. Burkina Faso just made history, and the world wasn't ready for this revelation. In a bold and strategic move, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader has unmasked foreign agents working to destabilize the region, and he has the evidence to prove it. This is the moment Africa fights back against foreign influence, hidden agendas, and neocolonialism. In this video, we break down the operation that led to the capture of Western-funded operatives, the rising support for African sovereignty, and how Traoré continues to reshape West Africa's political landscape. The struggle for independence and resource control just took a dramatic turn. Don't miss how Traoré caught foreign agents red-handed. The truth behind insurgencies in West Africa. Why the West fears leaders like Ibrahim Traoré. Burkina Faso's bold new anti-imperial stance. Join the conversation as Africans worldwide rally behind Traoré and demand an end to outside interference. The world is watching, and Africa is rising. Detailed analysis of Ibrahim Traoré and Burkina Faso's political landscape. How Traoré caught foreign agents red-handed. The narrative that Captain Ibrahim Traoré caught foreign agents red-handed originates from a specific set of claims circulating in pro-Traoré media and social platforms. According to a post on Islamabad Post and echoed on X, Traoré exposed a French ambassador allegedly attempting to flee Burkina Faso with billions in cash, gold bars, weapons, and detailed geological maps of the country's mineral deposits. This incident, if true, would suggest a coordinated effort by foreign powers to exploit Burkina Faso's resources covertly. Additionally, Traoré reportedly accused foreign journalists of acting as spies for Western corporations and military interests, allegedly facilitating resource plunder and destabilization. These claims align with his broader anti-imperialist narrative, positioning him as a defender of national sovereignty against foreign interference. However, these allegations lack substantiation from credible, primary sources. No official statements from the Burkinabe government, court documents, or intercepted communications have been made public to verify the ambassador incident or the journalist espionage claims. Major international news outlets, such as Reuters, BBC, or Al Jazeera, have not reported these events, which is notable given their diplomatic and geopolitical significance. The absence of such coverage suggests the claims may be part of a propaganda campaign to bolster Traoré's image as a revolutionary leader. Since the 2022 coup, Traoré's regime has tightly controlled media, suspending outlets like Jeune Afrique and France 24 for critical reporting, which may enable unverified narratives to proliferate. X posts and regional blogs often amplify these stories, but their reliance on anecdotal accounts and lack of corroborating evidence raises questions about their reliability. It's possible these claims are exaggerated to rally domestic and Pan-African support, though they resonate with historical grievances about foreign exploitation in Africa. The truth behind insurgencies in West Africa? The insurgencies in West Africa, particularly in the Sahel region, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and parts of Chad and Mauritania, are a multifaceted crisis rooted in local, regional, and global dynamics. Since 2015, jihadist groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb, AQIM, and the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, ISGS, have expanded their operations, exploiting structural weaknesses in governance, economic inequality, and ethnic tensions. In Burkina Faso, the insurgency escalated after 2016, with groups like Jamaat Nasser al-Islam wal Muslimin, JNIM, and ISGS targeting rural communities, schools, and military outposts. According to the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, ACLD, over 6,500 civilians have been killed since 2020, and more than 2 million people, roughly 10% of Burkina Faso's population, are internally displaced. The violence has spread to neighboring coastal states like Togo and Benin, making the Sahel a regional security crisis. The truth behind these insurgencies, as framed by Traoré and his supporters, often emphasizes foreign involvement. A recurring narrative on X and in regional media claims Western powers, particularly France and the United States, fund or indirectly support jihadist groups to destabilize resource-rich nations, ensuring dependency on Western military and economic aid. For instance, a post on X from @African_stream alleges Traore accused France of arming insurgents to maintain control over Burkina Faso's gold mines. However, no concrete evidence, such as financial records, arms shipments, or intelligence leaks, has emerged to substantiate these claims. Analysts like the International Crisis Group argue that insurgents primarily sustain themselves through local means, including taxing communities, smuggling drugs and weapons, and extorting illegal gold mines. These groups exploit local grievances, such as land disputes between farmers and herders or marginalization of ethnic groups like the Fulani, to recruit fighters. While foreign involvement cannot be entirely ruled out, the insurgency's roots lie in domestic failures. Weak state presence in rural areas, corruption under previous regimes, and the inability to provide basic services like education and healthcare have created fertile ground for jihadist recruitment. Traore's government has intensified military operations, but violence has not abated significantly. ACL data shows militant attacks nearly tripled from 2021 to 2024, suggesting that his focus on external scapegoats may deflect from governance challenges. The arrival of Russian mercenaries from the Africa Corps, formerly Wagner Group, in 2023 has provided tactical support, but their impact has been limited, with major attacks, like the August 2024 assault in Barcelona that killed over 100 civilians, highlighting ongoing vulnerabilities. Why the West fears leaders like IBRAHIM Traoré? Western apprehension toward Traoré stems from his bold rejection of historical Western influence in Burkina Faso and his realignment toward Russia, China, and other non-Western powers. Since seizing power in September 2022, Traoré has dismantled long-standing French ties, expelling French troops in February 2023, terminating military agreements, and suspending French media outlets. His nationalization of gold mines, a critical sector generating over $2 billion annually, 80% of exports, directly challenges Western corporate interests, particularly Canadian and Australian firms like Endeavour Mining. For example, in 2023, his government acquired a mine for $80 million, far below its estimated $300 million value, signaling a willingness to prioritize national control over foreign profits.
Traoré's formation of the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, with Mali and Niger in 2023, followed by their collective withdrawal from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, in January 2024, undermines Western-backed regional frameworks. His pivot to Russia, marked by reopening its embassy in Ouagadougou and hosting Africa Corps mercenaries, positions Burkina Faso as a flashpoint in the geopolitical rivalry between the West and Russia-China in Africa. At the 2023 Russia-Africa Summit, Traoré's speech accusing African leaders of being Western puppets amplified his influence, inspiring anti-Western sentiment across the continent. His invocation of revolutionary icons like Thomas Sankara and Che Guevara resonates with a youth demographic frustrated by unemployment, over 20% in urban areas, and the perceived failures of Western-style democracy. The West also fears Traoré's potential to inspire copycat movements. His social media presence, amplified by AI-generated propaganda and viral content on platforms like X, portrays him as a Pan-African hero, with hashtags like #TraoreUnmasks trending in 2024. This risks destabilizing other African nations with pro-Western governments, such as Senegal or Côte d'Ivoire. However, Western critiques often highlight Traoré's authoritarian tendencies, including his conscription of political opponents, media crackdowns, and the 2024 decision to extend his rule by 5 years without elections. These actions fuel narratives of instability, as seen in U.S. State Department reports labeling Burkina Faso a fragile state. The combination of his anti-imperialist policies and autocratic governance makes him a complex figure, a symbol of resistance to some, but a potential dictator to others. Burkina Faso's bold new anti-imperial stance. Traoré's anti-imperialist stance is the cornerstone of his leadership, rooted in a rejection of France's historical dominance as Burkina Faso's former colonial power. In February 2023, he expelled 400 French troops, ending a decades-long military presence justified by counter-terrorism operations. He accused France of using its influence to install compliant leaders, a claim resonating with Burkinabe who view the CFA franc, a French-backed currency, as a symbol of neo-colonial control. Traoré's government has pushed for a new national currency, though progress remains stalled due to economic constraints and AES coordination challenges. Economically, Traoré has prioritized self-reliance. His nationalization of gold mines, which produced 52 tons in 2023, aims to redirect profits to state coffers. The construction of a state-owned gold refinery in Ouagadougou, set to open in 2026, is intended to process minerals locally, reducing reliance on foreign refineries. His rejection of a Saudi offer to build 200 mosques in favor of funding schools and hospitals reflects a pragmatic focus on human capital over symbolic gestures. Traore has also distanced Burkina Faso from Western financial institutions, criticizing IMF and World Bank loans for their austerity conditions. Instead, he has sought partnerships with China, which funded a $400 million solar plant in 2024, and Russia, which supplied military equipment. This stance has elevated Burkina Faso as a leader in the AES, which Traore envisions as a counterweight to Western-dominated bodies like ECOWAS. His speeches, such as at the UN General Assembly in 2023, frame Africa's struggles as a fight against imperialist domination, earning him admiration across the continent. However, critics argue his policies lack institutional depth. The nationalization process has faced logistical hurdles, and the economy, with a GDP per capita of $850, remains fragile. Persistent insecurity, with over 30% of territory outside state control, undermines his vision of sovereignty. How Traore continues to reshape West Africa's political landscape. Traore's influence extends beyond Burkina Faso, reshaping West Africa's political dynamics through the AES and his rejection of Western frameworks. The AES, formed with Mali and Niger in September 2023, prioritizes mutual defense, economic integration, and non-Western partnerships. The bloc's withdrawal from ECOWAS in January 2024, citing its Western bias, challenged the regional status quo, prompting ECOWAS to impose sanctions that were later lifted. Traore's push for a shared AES currency to replace the CFA franc aims to break France's monetary grip, though economists warn of inflationary risks given the region's limited reserves. His alignment with Russia has deepened, with 1,000 Africa Corps personnel deployed by mid-2024 and Russian firms exploring mining concessions. China's investments in infrastructure, like the Ouagadougou-Donson Airport, and Turkey's supply of Bayraktar drones further diversify Burkina Faso's partnerships. These shifts have inspired similar moves in Mali and Niger, where French troops were also expelled. Traore's domestic reforms, such as increasing civil servant wages by 20% and slashing ministerial salaries, enhances populist appeal, though his conscription of 60,000 VDPs has drawn criticism for arming civilians without adequate training. Regionally, Traore's rhetoric has galvanized youth movements, with solidarity rallies in cities like Accra and London. His image as a new Sankara is amplified by viral X posts and AI-generated videos, though some diaspora critics warn of his authoritarian drift. The 2024 National Conference, which extended his rule to 2029 and sidelined opposition parties, has fueled accusations of consolidating power, potentially destabilizing Burkina Faso's democratic prospects. Who's funding this chaos? The question of who funds the Sahel's insurgencies is contentious and lacks definitive evidence. Traore and his supporters frequently accuse Western powers, particularly France and the US, of covertly backing jihadist groups to justify military presence and secure resource access. A post on X from a Pan-Africanist claims France funnels arms to insurgents via proxies in Libya, but no verifiable data, such as arms shipment records or financial trails, supports this. The US and France have spent over $3 billion on Sahel counterterrorism since 2013, including training Burkinabe forces, which undermines claims of direct insurgent support. Instead, analysts like the Center for Strategic and International Studies point to local funding mechanisms. Insurgents extort rural communities, control artisanal gold mines generating millions annually, and traffic drugs and weapons across porous borders. Russia's role complicates the narrative. While Traore portrays Russia as a partner against Western imperialism, some reports suggest Russian mercenaries prioritize resource deals over counterterrorism, with Africa Corps securing mining contracts in exchange for military aid. The lack of transparency in Burkina Faso's conflict zone makes it difficult to trace foreign funding, if any. Local dynamics, poverty, ethnic marginalization, and weak governance remain the primary drivers, with insurgents exploiting these to sustain operations. Why is Burkina Faso the battleground? Burkina Faso's status as a battleground stems from its strategic and economic significance. Geographically, it bridges the Sahel's desert north with West Africa's coastal south, making it a corridor for jihadist expansion. Attacks in northern Togo and Benin since 2022 highlight this spillover risk.
Economically, Burkina Faso's 52-ton annual gold output, valued at over $2 billion, attracts global interest, yet 40% of its 21 million people live below the poverty line, fueling resentment against foreign firms like Canada's Somafo, which have historically dominated the sector. Politically, Burkina Faso's history as a French colony and the legacy of Thomas Sankara, assassinated in 1987, make it a symbol of anti-imperialist struggle. Traoré's policies, including expelling French troops and aligning with Russia, have positioned Burkina Faso as a proxy for broader geopolitical contests. The US and France seek to counter Russian and Chinese influence, while Traoré's AES bloc challenges Western hegemony. Weak governance, with only 40% of territory under state control in 2022, has allowed insurgents to establish strongholds, making Burkina Faso a microcosm of the Sahel's crises. How did Burkina Faso eliminate insurgents while the West says it's weak? Claims that Burkina Faso eliminated insurgents are overstated and not supported by data. Traoré's government asserts it has reclaimed 70% of territory since 2022, up from 40%, through aggressive military campaigns and the recruitment of 60,000 volunteers for the defense of the homeland, VDP. These civilian militias, armed with AK-47s and trained for 3 weeks, have bolstered ground operations, alongside Russian-supplied drones and mercenaries. Traoré's Total War Strategy, announced in 2023, prioritizes offensive strikes, with reported successes in retaking towns like Djibo. However, ACL data paints a bleaker picture. Civilian deaths from militant attacks rose from 2,000 in 2021 to over 6,500 by 2024, with major incidents like the February 2025 attack in Solhan killing 130. Over 30% of territory remains contested, particularly in the north and east. Russian support has improved tactical capabilities but hasn't decisively shifted the tide, as jihadists adapt with hit-and-run tactics. Western portrayals of Burkina Faso as weak stem from its governance challenges. Traoré's suspension of media outlets, conscription of critics like activist Daouda Diallo, and delay of elections to 2029 signal authoritarianism. The displacement of 2 million people and closure of 25% of schools further undermine claims of stability. While Traoré's reforms, like boosting agriculture with Russian fertilizers, project resilience, the insurgency's persistence contradicts narratives of elimination. The African diaspora's perspective. The African diaspora saying, Africa must control its own resources, build its own industries, and develop its own human capital, encapsulates Traoré's appeal. His rejection of Western aid, nationalization of mines, and investments in education and healthcare align with diaspora calls for self-determination. Posts from accounts like @African Diaspora praise his refusal of Saudi mosque funding as a stand for practical development. His speeches, invoking Sankara's vision of food sovereignty and anti-imperialism, resonate with diaspora communities in Europe and the Americas, where solidarity rallies have occurred in cities like Paris and New York. However, Traoré's authoritarian measures temper enthusiasm. His crackdowns on dissent, including jailing journalists and conscripting activists, clash with diaspora values of democratic governance. AI-generated propaganda, such as viral videos glorifying Traoré as a revolutionary, amplifies his image but risks creating a cult of personality. Some diaspora voices on X, like @Panafricanfrum, caution that his extended rule and lack of elections could mirror the authoritarianism he claims to oppose, urging a balance between sovereignty and accountability.